Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Chloe with Cousin DIY coming to you today from the Cousin DIY studios. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating and discussing tools that are sold at Michael's that we supply. And I'm going to start with this Precision Comfort Cool Toolkit. And I'm going to open it up for you. And give you a sneak peek. Now, our Precision Comfort tools are ergonomic tools. They're designed in particular to help people that have carpal tunnel, arthritis, or just have difficulty with a standard tool. And I'm going to show you the difference. For starters, let me show you a Precision Comfort pair of needle nose pliers compared to a classic style. As you can see, there are two curved handles on the Precision Comfort, and the head is slightly angled, which can make it easier for you to get into tight places. And this set includes needle nose pliers, round nose pliers, and flush cutters. Flush cutters differ from side cutters, which are kind of the standard everyday cutter used in jewelry making. Flush cutters cut straight across, where side cutters cut at a little bit of a diagonal. And later on, I'll be demonstrating that and showing you. This kit also includes a jump ring opener, and you just put it on your finger and you open and close jump rings. I'll be demonstrating that. A bead sizer and ruler, and a bead reamer. So I'm going to go ahead and move a few things out of the way so I have a little more surface to work from here and get started. I'm just going to kind of wing this today. So if anybody has any questions along the way, please speak up and ask, and I'll do the very best I can to help or demonstrate for you. Round nose pliers are used to make loops. They're made, I'm going to grab some wire and demonstrate that. You can flip anytime. Flip. Maggie. Okay, so just to give you a demonstration, you would wrap that wire around the barrel and it makes a loop. And now there are many reasons you need to make loops in wire wrapping and making eye pins, finishing off a head pin. Lots of jewelry making projects and techniques involve using loops. As you see, the barrel's kind of graduated. It's thinner at the tip than it is here, so you can make different size loops. And this Precision Comfort handle is ambidextrous, by the way. So you can use it with your right hand or your left hand. And people have different comfort levels, different ailments per se that affect our hands. So some people find it more comfortable to use it with the longer handle on the outside or on the inside. That's something you'll play around with and you'll find your own comfort level with this. So now we also sell this tool separately. Next, I'm going to move on to the needle nose pliers. This is the same handle system. All of these are ambidextrous. This has an added little feature right here. It also has a little
Chloe,
wire
some
cutter.
of the viewers are asking if you could make the loop again because
Oh,
it's a
sure.
little bit lower than the screen.
I'm sorry, everyone. Of course I can. Let me cut a piece of wire. I'll also share with you a few of my little tricks that I've developed along the way. So I like to bend the wire at a 90-degree angle, like so, with my needle nose pliers. Sometimes I don't always use my needle nose pliers, but I often do. And then I trim the stem, let's say around 3/4 of an inch or so. And I take my round nose pliers and then I start to form a loop. So my first step is, I'll show you again, my first step is to put the barrel, depending on what size loop I want to make, right out near the end of that stem. And then I start twisting around and then I move my tool out, put it back in that little loop that's starting to develop. And I continue that until I have a loop. And then the next step is, if you want that stem, the remaining stem on the other side to be straight, you can use needle nose or your round nose. You'll find you're often using tools together and you just straighten that stem out so it's straight. And that's just a very basic loop. Later on, I'll be demonstrating how to make a wrap loop. So again, needle nose pliers. Don't hesitate to ask questions as we go along. They do have a little cutter in there, which is interesting. And the inside of the jaws are slightly abrasive, just ever so slightly abrasive to help hold on to whatever items you're working with. These are used to bend wire. You can open and close jump rings with these. I'm going to show you how to open and close. Whoops, let me grab an ear wire, for example. You're going to grab the base of the loop on the ear wire and you're just going to bend that up. Then you can attach that ear wire to a jump ring or a loop that you made or whatever. And then again, you're going to use that to close it. Can you flip? And
yeah, and Marguerite actually wanted to see if you could introduce the toolkit again.
Oh, I would love to. All right, this toolkit comes with, these are the main tools are all precision comfort tools. So it comes with, actually, I think that went up there. This went up here. Okay. So it has round nose pliers. These are used to make loops, to bend wire, etc. Needle nose pliers. These are used to bend wire, to hold on to findings and components while you're working. It has a little cutter in the middle that you can use to cut if you need to, and you don't want to put this tool down and pick up a cutter. It can also be used to form wire at right angles, etc. It has multiple uses. And then this is a flush cutter. The flush cutter cuts straight across whatever surface you're cutting. For example, if you're cutting the end of a piece of wire, it's going to cut it flush, straight. Unlike a side cutter, which cuts at a bit of a slight diagonal.
Marguerite wanted to know if you could show her the name on the packaging.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marguerite. Did you join the party a little late? I always do that. This is the packaging, and it shows all the tools included. Flush cutters, round nose pliers, needle nose pliers, jump ring opener, a bead reamer, and the bead sizer, which also includes a ruler up to 5 inches on this side. All included in this kit. Thanks for your questions. I hope if I'm going too fast, let me know. Now I'm going to demonstrate, I should have had this closer to me, opening some jump rings. Now, jump rings can be a lot of different sizes. So you put this little jump ring opener on your finger. You can put it on whatever finger you choose. And then you can either hold the jump ring in your fingers. I like to hold it in a pair of needle nose pliers. And then you can see there's different size slots. Some are bigger, some are thinner. And what you want to do is find the one that fits that jump ring the best. And you just stick it in there and swivel. You swivel that jump ring, opens it right up. Let's say you're attaching it to another jump ring. Let's attach it to another jump ring. We want to close this jump ring. You stick it back in the slot. You swivel it again until it's closed. Now you've got 2 joined jump rings. It's a real handy tool to have if you're going to be opening and closing a lot of jump rings and projects, let's say, such as chainmail. Next, we have the bead reamer. The bead reamer is a real handy tool, especially if you're working with wooden beads. I find wooden beads in particular tend to, I don't know if you can see, but see how this hole is plugged? It's all rough. It's not just wood beads you use. So you put the bead reamer in the bead and you twist it, and you can see it's getting rid of all that debris and all those rough edges, so that
That's so useful.
your bead is now free of debris and has a clear channel for you to string it or put head pins, eye pins, use wire, whatever you're going to do with it. And I'll demonstrate one more wooden bead. As you can see, this has a little debris in it right here on the end. You can also use it on any beads, but glass beads and ceramic beads, acrylic beads, sometimes it'll take a little patience. You want to twist and be really careful because you don't want to break the glass or the piece of acrylic. So here's an acrylic bead, and I'm just going to twist that reamer back and forth, get any debris that was in there, open the outside opening nice and open for you so you can string it and work with it without a problem.
Brittany was asking if you could explain what a jump ring is.
Oh, a jump ring is, it's a little ring. There's 2 types of jump rings. One is open, and by open, that means that you have a little cut where you can open and close. Closed jump rings are just a complete circle that are like soldered together, so you cannot open them. Those are used when you're making something real heavy and you don't want that jump ring to open up, or you're making a project that, let's say, that has a precious stone and you don't want to lose your gemstones and you just want to make it extra secure. So another trick that I wanted to show you, when you open and close jump rings, don't ever go like that. You always want to twist sideways because your jump ring has a memory of its shape. And if you interrupt that shape, so you just twist it sideways to open it and twist it back to close it. And then you can use your jaws to make sure that you squeeze that little opening nice and flush. Any other questions about jump rings?
Not about jump rings, but Kathy wanted to know if the bead reamer tool can enlarge the bead hole a little as well.
It can for certain types of beads. In my experience, if it's a glass bead or an acrylic bead, mostly glass, you don't want to break that glass bead. So you want to be careful. You can slightly enlarge the hole sometimes of a glass bead or let's say a pearl. But you want to go gently and slowly and carefully. Now with the wooden beads, you can just go to town opening it up because they're wood and they're soft and they're very easy to remove the debris from. So you can use them on many different types of beads, but in terms of enlarging the hole, that may depend on how much larger you need it, and it'll be a bit of a process of trial and error. I hope I answered your question. If not, keep asking. And last but not least in the kit is this bead sizer. Now the bead sizer, it measures from 2 millimeters to 20 millimeters. So I grabbed a few beads to show you an example. For example, this is a flat round bead, kind of like a cushion. We want to see approximately what size it is. So I'm going to place it. It's a little larger than 14. So I can lift it out. I'd say it's probably almost 16 millimeters. Many times beads are in between the size. They're not exactly the size, but I would say that one is 16 millimeters. And let's try a smaller one. Let me dump these out.
Barbara said coin bead. What's a coin bead?
It's not a coin. This is what I would call a flat round. And what I mean is it's not totally flat. As you can see, it's a little bit puffier here on either side in the middle than it is at the very edges. But I would call this a flat round bead or a flat cushion, a cushion round. But cushion rounds, there's a lot of slang, I think, too, in describing bead shapes. And that's just how I've always referred to it. When it's flatter, it's not a complete round. You know, there's oblong, there's round, rectangular, there's some faceted, non-faceted, so many different types of beads.
Susie wants to know, is that ruler bead sizer sold separately outside of the kit?
Not at Michael's. This is not sold separately. This is included in the kit, as is the bead reamer. The jump ring opener is, and the round nose pliers and the needle nose pliers. Those are all sold separately. Another thing, just for your information, is this is kind of a standard size bead reamer. If you have very fine whole beads, like some freshwater pearls or little crystals you're working with, there are bead reamers made that are very have this tiny little awl type barrel on it. But this is the one that you would use most often, and it's most versatile.
Margaret wanted to know, why would you care about the bead size?
Well, if you're following a pattern, or if you're trying to you saw something you really liked and somebody said, oh, I used 8mm beads and 6mm beads. This bead sizer, if you had a bunch of beads hanging around and you weren't sure, for example, what size they were, you could measure them and get an idea. I personally, I use this all the time when I'm making projects, or especially if you're somebody like me that has loose beads all over the place that you're working with, and you want to, let's say you want to graduate the sizes. Well, you can measure them. Let's say you wanted 12, 10, and 8mm. This is a handy tool. It also has this ruler on the side. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it measures up, well, actually to 6 inches. So that comes in very handy too. Keep your questions coming. Now I think we will move on to the 3-in-1 tool. The 3-in-1 tool does essentially 3 different things. It has a cutter right here. It has a flat area in the barrel right here that can either, I apologize, I've got all my stuff too far away from me. Let's say it can grab on and hold things, like it's holding on to this eye pen right now. Let's say I wanted to do something with this eye pen. This holds it a lot better than, thank you, Maggie, a lot better than your fingers, because they'll slide all around in your fingers, etc. But so see how I can bend that at a 90-degree angle? Let's say I want to cut it. Come on, cutters. See, it cut it for me.
Like butter.
Like butter. Now let's say that I want to form, let me cut that a little shorter. I want to form a loop. I'm going to go off near the end of that stem, the tip of that stem, and I'm going to work around until I formed a loop. So this is a good tool if you're working on a project and you're going to be back and forth between different techniques. You won't have to drop a tool, pick up another tool. You'll just have all in one right here. And again, it's ergonomically shaped. Recently, I was diagnosed with arthritis in my thumbs in both hands. And these tools are designed to make it easier for you, much easier for you to get into tight spaces. For example, let me go back to the, where is that flush cutter? Right here. Flush cutters are nice when you want to get into tight spaces. Let's say I want to cut this loop right up inside that circle. It allows me, I want to get flush with that stem. This is nice because instead of the jaws coming straight up, they're already angled for me. So you have an advantage to start with in terms of manipulating your tool to get into the areas you want to get into and accomplish the task at hand. Where was I? Okay, let me know if you have any further questions about the 3-in-1 tool. Now I'm going to move on to the long nose pliers. And the difference between these and the needle nose pliers is that, anytime, Maggie, you can, the barrels are longer, so they allow you more options. It does all the things that needle nose pliers do. It can be better for working with thinner gauge wire. It's also handy to be used in wire wrapping. You can use the needle nose pliers too, but sometimes if you've got a project that you got to get into a tight space, or you've got to get in, this will give you that extra length to really get into that area. Otherwise, it functions pretty much like needle nose pliers. So I thought today, one thing I would do, let me find my wire right here. I would demonstrate a basic wire wrap. I'm going to cut a length of, I can't seem to find the one bead I was going to demonstrate on, but any bead will do. This isn't going to be something, this is just going to be to demonstrate the technique. Now, when I'm using wire, wire wrap isn't one of my stronger skills, but I have learned a few things. And one is, if you're going to be wire wrapping, take the wire and run it between your fingers. It wakes the wire up, I guess you'd say, and it makes it easier to wrap and bend. I am going to form a loop on the top end, and let's just see what I can come up with here. I'm going to bend, and I can use any tool. I will use the round nose pliers, and I'm going to form a loop. Like so. I'm going to slide my bead up. So my wire's coming out of the hole at the bottom. And then I'm just going to play with wire wrapping. And I think if you haven't done a lot of wire wrapping, playing around with it and experimenting is the way to get started. I often find anchoring it around the stem, the loop at the top, is a good way. You want to leave a little bit of room there because you're going to wrap around the base of that stem later.
Annette and another viewer wanted to ask why you bend the wire before you make the loop.
I do that. That's a good question. I do that because it gives me, I find if I have that on a 90-degree angle, let me do this. I'm going to demonstrate like so. Let's see if this will stay in that bead. Oh, I'm going to share another trick with you. I find when I'm beading that very often I don't cut my stems all the same length. So if you find a bead, this I believe is around 8 millimeters. It's probably between 8 and 10. 7 to 8 is the best. It's a little trick so that every time your loops will be consistent. I slide that down. I call it my cheater bead. And then you cut that. Whoops, flying wire. Take it off. Now I could just go in with my round nose pliers and bend this, but it won't bend as close to the bead as your needle nose or long nose pliers will. This bends a little bit closer to the bead because you have this round barrel. At least that's my experience. So now I'm going to use my cheater bead. Well, I think I already did. And then I'm going to go a little bit shorter. I can see this is a little long. So see, by having this at a 90-degree angle, I'm all ready to get my tool, my round nose plier tool in there, or my 3-in-1 tool, and start making a loop. See how nice that loop came out? And by using the cheater bead, this is just an aside, your loops will always all be the same size and hopefully the same shape. I hope I answered your question. Now I'm going to go back to the wire wrapping. I'm not going to be using any special design or anything. It's just the technique. And I'm going to go back up. Whoops, this bead is slippery. It's not going to be very pretty, but you'll get the idea.
So somebody said that they got the bend, but why the loop in the opposite direction?
Oh, the loop isn't, well, I find it easier. Let's do that one more time. I find it easier.
Someone says, I love the idea of the cheater bead. I've never heard that one before. I'll definitely use it in the future. And then Sharon wanted to know, what is the name of the pink color tool?
This tool is a long nose plier, very similar to the needle nose plier. But as you can see, the barrel's longer and a little more tapered so that you can get in to tighter spaces and spaces that are a little bit further away on projects that you're working with. Otherwise, they essentially function the same, except our needle nose precision comfort pliers do have this added feature of a little cutter in the base of the barrels. The long nose pliers don't. I hope I answered your question. So I'm just going to continue on demonstrating this basic, really kind of discombobulated wire wrap I'm doing for you here. Crisscross again. When I'm wire wrapping, I find I like beads that have a little bit of a rough edge on them because the wire really grabs, but it doesn't mean you can't wrap any wire. This bead is just very, very
Elizabeth
slick.
wants to know what size wire are you using?
This wire right here is probably 24 gauge. So yeah, it's just a wire that I happen to have aside handy here. Anyway, I'm doing a terrible job, guys, forgive me, but I did want to demonstrate how you would take this wire back up, and you can either use your hand. I'm holding that loop with my needle nose pliers. Let me take my long nose pliers, and then so you can use that tool. This is a really soft wire, so it's kind of wiggly. But anyway, I did a lousy job, but it just shows you this wire is so soft and easy to wrap. With a heavier gauge wire, tools would come in super, super handy. Next, I will move on to, let's do another demonstration of another thing that you can use, another technique you can use your needle nose or long nose pliers for. I strung this little bracelet here, and I started thinking it would be a necklace, but I decided it's going to be a bracelet. That's why it's so long. And now I want to attach a jump ring on one end and a jump ring and a lobster clasp on the other end. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to need crimps. We're going to need a couple crimps. These are crimp tubes right here. First step is to slide the crimp tube on the wire. Can you see, everyone? I slid the crimp tube on the wire. Then I'm going to slide the wire through a jump ring. like so. And then I'm going to bring that wire back through the crimp tube, like so. And I'm going to slide that crimp tube right up next to the jump ring. I hope you can all see that. And then I don't have crimping pliers with me today, but you really don't need them because you can use long nose pliers or needle nose pliers to close crimp tubes as well. And then I'm just going to squish it and see how I close that. I'm going to trim the tail of my wire. And now it holds that end of my bracelet and it's attached to a jump ring. Now on the other end, I'm going to, okay, let me find a lobster clasp. I have one right here. I'm going to use my long nose pliers. Oh no, I'm going to use my jump ring opener to open my jump ring.
Oh, that's great, because Margaret wanted to know if we could review the jump ring.
Yeah. So I put the jump ring opener on my finger. Some people prefer it on their thumb. And I'm going to hold my jump ring in a tool. Some people might want to use their fingers. Do I have a closed jump ring here? Nope. I'm going to find the slot where this fits best and see how it opened right up. Can you see how that jump ring opened up? Then I'm going to slide this jump ring through the loop on the end of a lobster clasp. And I'm going to close my jump ring using my jump ring opener and closer gadget here. Now, I take my long nose pliers in this case. I just like to squeeze the opening so it's flush so that things won't slip or wire or anything won't slip back off. If you leave a little opening, sometimes that can happen. So I've closed my jump ring. Now I'm going to take another crimp tube.
Susie wanted to ask, won't smushing the crimp tube weaken the integrity of the stringing wire?
No.
No. And then the viewer from before,
If you did it repeatedly, it would.
uh-huh.
You don't want to, you want to squeeze it firmly enough to close the crimp tube securely, but not to cut the crimp tube or the wire that's inside the crimp tube.
And then SS Solis mentioned that we didn't go over why we went in the opposite direction before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have to do a demonstration. She just wants to know why.
Well, it's just because that's the way my hand works. I will do it one more time. I like to form a loop. Well, because that's how you're going to form the loop. It's not really the way my hand works, I guess. You're going to bend your wire down and then rolling it back towards you is going to form the loop. If you were to roll it down the other way, you can't see what you're working on. You want to roll it back up towards you so you can see your work. You're not working away from your eyes, you're working towards them. I hope that makes sense. Let me know.
Marguerite asked also, when would you use a lobster clasp versus a spring clasp?
I think they both have the same function, but in my opinion, I think a lobster clasp is a little more upscale or a little more, I don't want to say fancy, but I prefer that look as opposed to a spring clasp. I think it just looks a little more expensive. Not that it is. I just prefer the look. Some people prefer the others. So it's just a matter of choice. So now I have my crimp tube on my wire. I'm going to slide that wire through the jump ring. And I've got super long length. You wouldn't have to have it this long. And I'm going to bring that tail back through my crimp tube. Oh, perfect example. I did not apparently close my jump ring snugly enough. That wire slipped right between the ends. So I'm going to show you a little trick. I hope you can see. I'm just going to wiggle. This is the separation in that jump ring. And I'm going to take these tools and I'm going to wiggle them back and forth. Now I can feel those two ends are touching each other now. That's not going to open. Let's try this again. I already have my crimp tube on here. Bring my wire through my jump ring.
We have a couple questions. Kathy wants to know that before class is over, could we discuss the memory wire cutters? I've heard memory wire will break ordinary wire cutters, so specialized cutters are needed. Is that true?
That's true, but we don't have that tool here today, but those are called parrot beak plier cutters, parrot beak cutters. And yes, they are more heavy duty. I don't have those to demonstrate to you today, but that's what they're called and that's what you use them for. So I slid, and please let me know if you have further questions.
Marguerite wants to know, what are the beads strung on here?
Oh, this is a beading wire. This is 7-strand beading wire. It's sold by many different companies. This happens to be ours. Today I'm featuring the tools that Michaels carries from our company, Cousin DIY.
Great, thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm sure you can find beading wire there, lots of it. So I pulled that, I hope you can see. And again, I'm just going to squeeze and trim. I use my flush cutters, get right in there so I can get nice and close. And now we have a bracelet. I had pre-strung the beads, but as you can see, that's so easy to do. I remember before I started making jewelry, I thought, oh my goodness, how do you do it? It's so complicated. I'll never be able to do it. Well, it was a little bit of a learning curve, like how to make loops and do certain techniques. But boy, once I got it, I was hooked. So much fun to make your own jewelry. Customize if you need something in a certain color or you name it. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the side cutters. Where are you, side cutters? Here you are. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to give it a try. This is some 18 gauge aluminum wire I happen to have. You may not be able to see the difference between the side cutters . I don't know if you can see, but that cuts at a slight diagonal, not straight across, as opposed ever so slight. So it's not really a big deal. I think another thing with the flush cutters is that they allow you to get into tighter spaces sometimes. Now this is the flush cutter. Flush cutter cuts straight across. Okay, I think we've covered everything now except our wire jig. This is our what?
And the wax.
Oh, and the wax. Let's do the wax first. Forgive me, I'm jumping around a little bit, guys, but if you're anything like me, that's normal for me. So the reason that you use
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, Clay. 2 questions.
oh, sure.
One person asked, how do you know what kind of wire or string to use on a project without a pattern?
Well, it depends. There's different types of beading wire. 7-strand is the most common. There's, I think it's 18 strand or something like that, and then 48 strand or 49 strand. But 7 strand is what I usually use for a project when I want to be able to attach a clasp or a jump ring, and I'm going to use crimping tubes or crimping beads. Stringing is often used in pearls when you're stringing pearls, because you want a knot in between. Sometimes people using pearls will want to knot off in between each individual pearl. But that could be a class for another day, where I could show you more advanced particular techniques for how to use thread versus stretch cord versus beading wire versus gauged wire versus cord, that kind of thing.
And it says she would love to see a pearl stringing demo.
Oh, okay.
Kim also wanted to know, when would you use a side cutter?
That's the most standard cutter. You can really use, they're almost, side cutters are the standard. Flush cutters, the word flush, it lets you cut a little more flush, like to a bead or to a component, than a side cutter. But side cutters are the standard. So you can really use either one. I do use both, just because I've made enough jewelry now that I can see, through trial and error, when one is better suited for cutting in an area I want to cut than the other. But most of the time, it's a side cutter that people will have in their jewelry toolkit. Now here is the beeswax. This is used to strengthen and condition thread. Now, thread can be used when you're doing seed bead, it's used for so many different things. It's used a lot in seed bead patterns or seed loom, beading looms. You're apt to use thread. Today, I'm just going to demonstrate how you run the thread through the beeswax. And so you would determine what length you want. I'm just going to leave it right on the spool, and then you just run it, pull the thread through the beeswax, or the beeswax through the thread, I'd say a couple of times. And what this does is it puts a little bit of a coating on the thread, a little bit of wax. You might be able to see it, catch it a little bit. And it coats that thread. It's less likely to tangle. It makes it a little bit smaller, and it can also make it easier, let's say, to put through the eye of the needle, although that can always be a challenge, depending, especially a lot of beading needles have very tiny eyes that you're trying to, so you can always use a needle threader for that, but we don't have those today. But that's what you would use this beeswax for. I suppose you could also use it for heavier cord, but it's most commonly used with beading thread.
Kathy wants to know, is it sticky?
No, it's not. It's not really sticky. It just gives it a little more body. It's less likely to tangle, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. But no, beeswax is hard and it's not really sticky. Last but not least, I'm going to move on to the wire jig. Now, this is a basic wire jig. It's like a starter wire jig that is good for those that have never used one before. So I have one right over here. Inside the wire jig, it comes with some, I believe this is 24 gauge wire. And it comes with one large peg, 2 smaller pegs, and inside, I'll show you, I emptied out one. So it has one big one, like so. 2 large ones. 2, I'd say medium. And then I believe the kit has 14 of these small little pegs. And what you do is the pegs have a little, one side is a little bit thinner and one side is a little bit thicker. So the thinner side is the side that you will stick in your jig. And you're going to place these in different positions on your jig where you will wrap wire around the pegs to form different designs and shapes. The kit comes with a starter on how to set up your pegs to make this flower shape, this snake shape, or this, they call it a yoke shape. Today, I'm going to show you how to make the snake shape. And I'm going to show you, where did I put them? A pair of earrings I made this morning using the jig. I formed 2 snake shapes on the jig and attached, I made a bead drop, attached that to one loop on one end and an ear wire to a loop on the other end. And I can't tell you how easy and fun it is to make different you can go online and find on Pinterest or just Google wire jig patterns, and they are endless. Some are more complicated, some are more basic. This one is pretty basic. And I'm going to go back. I placed my pegs in, followed the design for placement that comes in this little instruction manual. And then it also shows you what direction to bend your wire in, which can be very, very helpful. Now, for these, I'm going to use a 20 gauge wire because I want these to really hold their shape. So I'm just going to guess, and I'm going to cut a length. Whoops, excuse me.
Wanted to know if there's time, could we also show how to use eye pins in the beads?
Absolutely. How much time do we have left?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, let me go fast. Man, I can't believe an hour, almost an hour has gone by already. I am going to, I'll take my 3-in-1 tool because that's what's handy. What I like to do is form a loop on one side of my wire, just so I can anchor it around, I can make that a little smaller, around my starting peg. And then when you're working with this, you're going to want to work with it down near the surface. Now, here's an example of when the long nose pliers are going to come in handy. I'm going to use them to tighten that loop right there. And then this is a very simple, easy design. We're just going to keep wrapping this wire back and forth around these pegs. Like so, I keep pushing them down. And it's going to form this little snake shape. Woo! Like so. And the last step when we come around to this last peg is to wrap it around that last peg. And because we can gently try to lift this off, but because time is short and you want me to show you how to, what is it she wanted me to show her again? I'm sorry.
Demonstration of the eye beads or the eye pin. And then also Victoria wanted to know, what gauge wire are you using?
Right now, oh, I broke that. Don't look at that.
Sorry.
All right, so as you can see, and then I can work on that, straighten it out. I can use my flush cutters. This is an example of when flush cutters are better than side cutters, because I want to cut this wire flush with that. Hitting hammers today, but I put this on a block and I hammered it a little bit, and that just keeps it from stretching. It puts a memory in the wire, makes it a little more permanent, that it's going to hold that wire shape. So, and then I added a bead drop at the end. Okay, eye pins. Now, eye pins are used to, let's say we want to connect a couple of beads. Now I'm just grabbing what I happen to have handy. I'm going to slide this bead on here, and I'm going to use a cheater bead, and I'm going to cut. And then I'm going to form another loop on the other side, and we're going to be making a bead link. Now I fold this away from me. And again, this is a step that not everyone uses. This is just my own personal preference. And then I am going to go in here. See how this way, if I were going the other way, I wouldn't be able to see the loop. By working the loop back towards me, I can see what I'm working on. Okay, now we have a bead link. Now the reason a bead link, now here I have a bead drop. This bead drop has a head pin, so it's got a head pin. The end of the head pin is holding it into the bead on that end, but we can open one of these links, or loops, I mean, on this bead link. Oops, I'm going to get the other side of it. Open it up like that, same way you would a jump ring. Slide whatever it is you want to connect it to, another bead link or a bead drop or a component, whatever, and close it and see. So that's like a connector. So you have like